Imagine that you have a developer that is working on a very important feature and there's a major outage and he needs to go out of his zone and remediate something. So you immediately lost 2-3 hours. So the cost of unplanned work is also something that sometimes companies and startups are short of factoring it into the equation.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 77, NOC as a Service with Xiteit. Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darren and Victor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darren reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Victor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darren Pope and Victor Farsick. Now, last week we were talking to Joe from Polimi about creating infrastructure, getting things going. We've talked about all the different things about managing infrastructure. We've talked about logging with Loki. We've talked Prometheus for metrics. And we're sending all these things out. But yet, somebody has to manage that. Right?
It doesn't have to, but
well, okay.
It might be a good addition.
Our alien overlords are not here yet. Skynet has not taken full effect yet. We'll probably see that from the other sides of AWS and Azure and Google in a few years. But in the meantime, I'm old. So I remember working in a network operations center 4 stories underground under a parking deck back in the mid-'80s. Let's just say it was very dark, very cold. Not humid, thankfully, but very dry. I don't miss those days. But today, we have some guests on. We've got Avi and Asaf from Xiteit. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Wait, are you saying that kind of you don't miss those things and then you introduce people? Is this indirectly saying that they might be missing those things?
I am saying that they have found a better way to do it.
Okay, that sounds better.
So, guys, thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and explain a little bit about what Xiteit is and how it came to be.
Xiteit is a product, a SaaS-based product that we have developed for managing NOC around the world. It came up from Moving On. Moving On is a company that provides NOC as a service, or as Darren said in the introduction, is an MSP that provides NOC as a service to customers. So it started as an internal product that we had to put everything that we know into it, and then sometimes later we have released it. So that's the relation between Xiteit and Moving On.
My name is Asaf. I run sales and marketing for Xiteit and Moving On for almost 2 years now. Just as Avi mentioned, out of our own growth challenges, Xiteit came to be the product that basically runs our MSP. Again, thank you for having us. We're excited speaking to you.
Let's go back to the Moving On days. Why did you decide to do NOC as a service? How did you even see that as a gap in the market?
That's a good question. Let's go back to 2011 when all the SaaS started to form, and Roy, which is my partner, and myself are veterans in this area, and we noticed that once you go to the cloud, you have to be on all the time. We have managed some NOCs in the past, and we know how much hassle is that. So that's where we came the idea to create Moving On and start a company for NOC as a service. So actually, we have the experience, and we give each company the share from the resources they need for that. So again, that's the idea behind moving on.
So does that include tools, or so can I, for example, contract your service right now, or I need to change the tools that I'm using?
From day one, we have understood that we do not want to make the customer's life difficult. Lucky, Prometheus, Zabbix, Grafana, all the monitoring tools are the customer's ones. He created them, he put a lot of efforts into make them working before we came aboard. So we are using this as a base. Down the road for the NOC, we have developed tools, and of course at the end we developed Xiteit, which takes all the monitoring and manage everything. But the idea for us is that the customer use whatever he has developed, and we give tools on top of that and services on top of that.
So to add on top of what Avi just mentioned, a part of our own internal challenges developing the product and why Moving On came to be an MSP that provides NOC as a service is we're based in Israel, and Israel is being perceived for many years now as the startup nation or the innovation nation. And that basically means that the amount of startups per capita generated each year is one of the largest globally. And so many of these startups are B2B or they're ad tech, so they're very diversified. There's a lot of markets, a lot of segments, and some of them really do require 24/7 uptime. Now, when you build a startup, you have your own team, your garage days, and then you start to scale out the team, and then you start to putting a bit more structure and processes in place, such as DevOps and customer success, and you have your R&D and the rest. These teams usually are divided and they do on call, but it's also very difficult for them to continuously stay alert, keep themselves on call, not even mostly during the night, but also during the day. Imagine that you have a developer that is working on a very important feature and there is a major outage and he needs to go out of his zone and remediate something. So you immediately lost 2-3 hours. So the cost of unplanned work is also something that sometimes companies and startups are short of factoring it into the equation. There was a gap in the market, and by providing a NOC as a service, I think we filled that gap, and that allowed us to really grow and support the growing ecosystem here.
So in providing NOC as a service, I know what a physical NOC is. I slept under the desks. What does a virtual NOC look like?
So basically, it's a combination of both technology and people. So we have 24/7 engineers, analysts that are, well, hopefully they're not sleeping under the tables, such as yourselves, but they're working with various technologies that flows essentially into the technology that we've developed. Through our platform, they basically have access to the customer's environments and all the customers' monitoring environments, logging, tracing, APMs are flowing into the NOC. And as part of the service that we provide, we build and maintain and develop runbooks, which is still a concept that still is very viable and valid in our industry. And we remediate, and it could be all the way from the very basic tiers, all the way up to DevOps services, people who actually are very intimate with our customers' environment. So it's a combination of both people and processes and technology, essentially.
On top of what Asaf is saying, there is something more fundamental, is that running a NOC is very expensive and very complex. It's very correct, it's very for a large company to have, they need one person or two person in each time. But if you go to startups, they have automation, they have teams, and they don't really need to put a dedicated person. So that's where comes the NOC as a service. So it's came up also to answer the needs that you don't need someone everywhere. So we can take one resource and divide it among many customers, so they save money. We give them the service, and besides the shared mode, we also provide the experience. Think about a company, an MSP that running dozens of customers. He learns from everyone. He gets feedback, so you get one customer problem and then you give benefits to another customer. So that's the concept of NOC as a service is very much modern, like any infrastructure or platform as a service, the same concept.
Are you reactive only or proactive as well? In terms like, for example, do you go to the teams and say, hey, let me show you how to instrument your application so that I get more visibility? Do you try to shift parts to the left as well or completely to the right?
I'll go back to prior to moving on. We were working for an American Israeli company, and we have a very, very big NOC. And what they were doing was like what we call proxy. They got alerts and they wake you over the night. And we were the team that got the scores. And then we said, never, never have NOC such like that. So the DNA of our NOC as a service is not just to give. We try to solve the problems. And we make it more sophisticated along the time. So when we started, it was a manual procedures. And now with the combination of our internal product, Xiteit, we can combine automation, human intelligence, and escalation. What we try to bring is an additional value that resolves the problem before or without involving the customers. We cannot do it all the time, but we're trying to give the 80% and save times for our customers.
Are you trying to transmit that knowledge as some kind of operators that are later running inside of those clusters and trying to do the same thing? You know, kind of like, I don't know, you found the outage, this happened, fix it like this. By the way, from now on, run these things so I don't need to fix it for you anymore. I mean, basically, I'm talking about something equivalent to Kubernetes operators or what's or not, right?
Yes. We're trying to advise and consult our customers as much as we can from two main reasons. One, this is one of our added value. If we don't give that value, at the end of the day, they will find the different solutions. On the other hand, I look at NOC, a good NOC, an efficient NOC, as NOC that is proactive, that try to solve the problem before it happens. And this is basically helping the customer and helping my team to be more relaxed and more accurate.
A different way to say it is the best outage is no outage?
Exactly. Although we can never get it, right?
We'll say that's true for now. I think we can at some point. I want to go back to one word that Asaf said that just made my skin crawl. And it was, or phrase was, you guys still develop runbooks. What does a runbook look like in your NOC and in your processes? Is it a Word document?
Oh, no.
Thank you. It's a valid question, unfortunately.
Yes,
just don't say it's not a Word document, it's Google Doc now.
or an Excel spreadsheet.
Of course. When we started as a company, we had Excel sheets and Word documents. As an MSP, it was not scalable. And we were looking into a computerized solution and we never find it at that time. You remember, we started at 2011, 9 years ago. So that's why we have developed Xiteit. And Xiteit is basically a computerized NOC, a platform, and then it's have a handbook. But as in our experience, and then we are not the only one that did it, we are now taking the runbook into a workflow. And when you do a workflow and a decision support system, then you get ability to automate some of the things and ability to leave the important things for the human. But it's helping us the way that we computerize the runbooks to remediate fast, to help our team, and basically to create a workflow here.
I think also the concept of runbook historically might be of a Word document of do this, do that, here's the script that you need to run, restart their service, stuff like that. But I think when we look at a runbook or cookbook or playbook, doesn't matter how you call it, I think the context is a bit more wider. It's the entire process of managing an incident. It's the process of not just from a technical perspective, but also from a business perspective, and the ability to modularize the entire chain of events, starting from when you have identified the incident, all the way to notification to the right individuals who are on call, running a bunch of automations to try and remediate that. That didn't work. escalate that, start a process of notifying your internal CS team so they can be aware of what's going on, so they can basically communicate that back to the internal stakeholders and their own customers. So if you look at a runbook, we look at it from a much higher view, which is both of a technical remediation process as well as a business remediation process. And it really boils down to the fact that it's a governance process to ensure that every time I have an incident, and this is something I know I'm expecting, I know what are the processes and what are the workflows I need to take in order to remediate them and close the case.
And the good thing about that process is if you have a runbook fire off, and you see this especially on the business side, these are called standard operating procedures. That's just yet another way to call it. So you basically have your runbook, it's workflowed. So by the time, and using the other word governance, by the time somebody's actually being woken up and getting on a bridge, you can see exactly how much of that runbook has already been run and at what point we're at in the runbook and why am I here.
You're absolutely right.
It's almost like I've done this before, except I didn't have Word documents back then. We actually had dot matrix printers. Yeah, I'm that old. I'm just on this side of punch cards. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I just miss punch cards.
I started with the punch cards, by the way.
Yeah. So you're just a hair older than me, maybe
Yep.
by a day. How important is that runbook process? I imagine that is critical in everything that you do. It has to be in order to eliminate the humans as much as possible.
I think, yes, you're right. I think what really defines the success is consistency and uniformity in your processes and runbooks and standard operating procedures. I always use Avi's very well-known phrase that when you run a NOC, you're basically being measured on your failures and not on your successes. I think it's a fundamental element in running a very well organized NOC and basically ensuring either when you do it as an MSP or when you're operating an internal NOC, the outcome basically is really protecting your customer expectations and experience. And so you have to have that processes. You have to gather that institutional knowledge. People come and go. They don't necessarily share that knowledge because of various reasons. So when you have that documented processes and automated up to a certain extent, I think it really plays a critical role in the world of NOC.
I have to add here that in our world, when we give services to cloud companies, creating a runbook is a big challenge because of perceptions. We are dealing with a startups company that believes that everything can be automated, that if they know what to do, they will automate it. And the concept of running a well-organized NOC is not something very familiar with them. And we have to explain them the benefits of writing these NOCs, how did they take the silos of knowledge and put them in one place. So this is, for us in the cloud environment, is sometimes a challenge, convincing the customers to have this organized NOCs, runbooks.
Let's stay there for just a second. Why is that such a hard pitch to people that, well, if I could automate it, I'm going to automate it? I mean, that seems like that would be the answer, right?
Right, but let's look about what is automation. Automation at the end of the day is a piece of code. So someone has to monitor the automation as well, right? On the other hand, you can automate what you know, right? So if you do automation and you have things that you've never expected, then what do? So the best way to handle it is via a runbook. In a runbook, if you get things that are closed, things that give the NOC engineer the ability to look for other things.
But isn't the runbook also the things you know? Runbook is also not the things you don't know. That's kind of contradictory in a way, right?
Yes, it is a contradiction in a way, yes. But if you're not sure, then there is a problem. You have to look at that again, that we are measured by failures, not by success. What's that mean? That if you find a system interruption, no one will clap your hands for you and say that's your work. If you fail to do that, then you will probably have to go RCA and things like that. So in our runbook of if you're not sure, then do something is better than having nothing and only just automation.
Well, I think part of it is too, from a runbook perspective or SOP, is if you can automate, please automate.
Right.
But at some point when an incident occurs, it's going to be something that you hadn't seen before. Maybe the outcome of that is more automation, but maybe it's just a line item that here's something we have to check until we can figure out how to automate it.
In our world, when you do agile and the software all the time, sometimes doing the automation before introducing the features will delay you. So you can, like Darren said, you can introduce the feature, do manual checks, runbooks, and so on, and later on automate it. Runbook and automation must live together.
So then, following that line of thought, unknown things happen, unpredictable things happen, right? You figure it out, you find out that something wrong is going on that nobody predicted before. You fix it. What happens after that? How does the post-mortem look like in your case? And especially in relation with the customer.
Okay, so basically in our world, it's a two-stage post-mortem, because the customer has to do the post-mortem on his application level and his internal processes, because we are just one player in his environment. What happened on our side is that we always look what we can advise the customer for the next time. Can we do automation? Can we improve the runbook? Did we responded well? So it's actually a two-stage process. Once internally, and the second is the customer's post-mortems.
You're now talking about basically something that I would identify as creating silos, right? When you start talking about developers and you, and that's what they do, that's what we do. Isn't that kind of dangerous?
First, yes, it may create a silos, but you have to remember that our internal runbooks and a product is available for the customers. So he can use it also by himself. So everything we have internally is transparent. So if we change the runbook, if we do anything, it's available for him in real time. So he can use our knowledge, and that's the way that we are merging the knowledge internally and the knowledge of the customer. Transparency is the most important things in our world, in my opinion.
I think one of the reasons, and without sounding too markety, is we have customers that have really stayed with us for many years now. They started when they were 10, 15 people, and now they're big and well-known brands. At some point, because we've reached that level of intimacy and every customer of our service automatically gets access to the platform, to some extent, we are an extension of their internal teams. So one might think that it might be dangerous and silos of knowledge could be created, but in reality, as dangerous and difficult as it is, we don't see that often. It's really about communication and transparency.
So in that sense, communication transparency, do you also kind of perform some similar services like SREs that you sit with those same teams and say, go through the code of their application and tell them, do you do code reviews? Kind of like, hey, look, if you, are you involved in pull requests? And get back to them saying, hey, look, we just detected that if you do this in your application, then this is potentially going to happen when you run it live, right? Things like that. Do you sit with them? Do you spend a day, a week, or something like that reviewing the application before going live? Let's say for the first time or something like that.
We are not doing it only on the onboarding. We're doing it on an ongoing basis. The way that we work, and since we are doing it for many years, we cannot be a silo, or even though we are extension, we cannot be a silo. So for each customer, we have allocating hours of DevOps and customer success. And their requirement and their role is to work with the customer, understand the customer's environment, advising. Our NOC is not, our customers doesn't want us to monitor infrastructure. Infrastructure today in the cloud environment is seamless. We monitor the business, we monitor the applications. In order to do that, we must understand the customer's environment, must understand what they are doing, must understand the application. No, we are not developers of the customers, we are not debugging the customers, but we understand what the customer does. We work with him. When he introduces new features, we take it and put it in the right process for the NOC. And also, as a company, moving on also sells DevOps and SREs capabilities, things like that, but this is an optional or add-on services, but the NOC basic service will include professional services in order for us to be part of the customer's team.
How does the data transfer work? Are you pulling data? Are you pushing data? Are you integrating with other third-party services like Datadog, or how does that work? What's the process kind of? Let's say that hello, I want to be a customer. What do I do?
Okay, so let's go back to what we discussed, I think, 15 minutes ago. Our perception is that the monitoring environment are the customer's proprietary. So if we can build it for the customers, but we'll never keep it in our premises because I don't want to lock the customer to myself. I want the customer to be my customer because I'm good and not because I locked him with a monitoring platform. Going back, the monitoring infrastructure, it belongs to the customers. We can help him to build it. Okay, once we understand that, the next thing is how do we integrate that into our NOC services? And here, 5-6 years ago, the easiest way when we introduced the customer was to go to his emails, get the emails into our NOC inbox, and we have developed a smart parser. At the beginning, we look at the emails, then later on, when we started Xiteit, we have developed a smart parser that took the emails into Xiteit, and we have it. Emails are absolute or going out. So in the next level, we have an API. So we help the customer to integrate Prometheus, Loki, Datadog, and so on into our system in real time. So they send an API call and we get the event into our product. And one of the things that we have developed internally is that we connect the event directly to the runbook. So our system, Xiteit, know how to connect the event into the right, the alert into the runbook, and it's a different story.
I think what is important to mention, Victor, is also to emphasize on what Avi's mentioned. I think we're really very agnostic when it comes to any monitoring platform that the customer comes with, whether it would be that right now he sends his alerts into an email system, or to a Slack channel or Microsoft Teams channels, or even his own proprietary monitoring, either embedded in the code or something that he built internally. We're completely agnostic around that. As you mentioned, you tell us what you have in your monitoring stack, we'll plug it into our system, and that's basically it.
So your basic part is, what's the hook to the runbook? That's one of the key parts.
Right. So essentially, as we mentioned, I mean, if we're talking about the NOC, the important thing is really to ensure that there's consistency and uniformity in your standard operating procedures. We talked a lot to customers that already maybe operate a NOC, and they say, well, we have a runbook. What is that runbook? It's a wiki somewhere, a SharePoint list or a document that someone created, and we were very smart in bringing the alert already with the link to the runbook. So, but still, there's always a manual element to it. And so someone needs to look at the runbook, he needs to read it, go over it, and so on and so forth. And we said, well, we want to combine the two worlds. We want to get the alerts. Of course, we do all the magic of aggregating them and correlating, and that's important right now to really crystallize and distill the important stuff. But on the same note, we said, well, let's surface the entire remediation process together with the alert to the NOC engineer who is currently doing his shift. And we can automate what needs to be automated, so it's easier to actually ensure a very consistent remediation process. So, and that's the hook. Here's the alert. Automatically, the runbook is attached to it. It could run automatically, so it doesn't even really seen by the NOC engineer, or at one point he needs to intervene, maybe do something manual, And if that doesn't work, maybe start an escalation process.
There is another layer to that, is that if the listeners were here, we get alerts and connect them, but life is more complex to that. Because sometimes, since we get information from multiple monitoring environments, remember the customers, probably everyone has multiple platforms. They choose best breed to monitor different types of their applications. So we get the monitoring from the customers' different monitoring platform. One of the things that we have developed internally is the way to do monitoring cross platforms. Or we call it internally smart rules, but this is more like a type of an AI to understand, or rules that allows us to connect. Take the simplest example, your router failed and you get 1,000 alerts because everything failed. So the NOC engineer will get 1,000 alerts. He doesn't know what to do with that. It's like, hey, what's happening here? So we know how to connect it into one problem and tell him, okay, to understand the root cause analysis and then connect it to the right runbook. So running a NOC is not just getting alert connected to the runbook. It's also understanding the cross environment, what happened, and that's to connect to the runbook.
I think it's a great place to stop. Guys, thanks for being with us today. If you want some more information as you're listening to this about Xiteit, you're tired of living under the table in your NOC, both Avi and Asaf's information's there, but then link off to Xiteit will also be there as well. And then if you really don't want to do it yourself, talk to Moving On and they'll just take care of it all for you. Have a nice day type thing. Yeah, okay. Right, because nobody enjoys running a NOC, right?
We do.
Oh, you do. Somebody has to. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you again.
Darren, Victor, thank you for hosting us.
Cheers, guys.
We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at devopsparadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.